Welcome to the latest episode of Motiv8 Talks. I'm Harvey Osborn, the founder of Motiv8 Group, which incorporates the Motiv8 Search automotive platform and the Motiv8 forums, offering with our in-house forums and live on-site V forums with automotive manufacturers around the world. This episode of Motiv8 Talks is with Ohme, and I'm joined today by David Watson, founder and also CEO of Ohme. So welcome, David. And I think a good starting point would be, let's kick off with the name. I partly see it as OHME, but also Ohme. Is that the right pronunciation of it?
Well, the pronunciation is Ohme. I guess it derived from ohm. I'm sure all of us can think back to our physics back at school where we had an ohmic resistor. So that was invented by a character called Ohm. So okay. there's an element in there, and Ohme is also an anagram of home, where we effectively focused on home charging. So by bringing the two of them together, we came up with the name Ohme.
Fantastic. So what is the background of the company?
Well, we could see that renewable energy was unpredictable and it was causing price volatility, or what people call imbalance in the system. So some days you had too much wind, other days none. Sometimes it was sunny and other times it wasn't. And that was beginning to create a problem in the energy system. And I began to think, well, what if we could combine technology and electric vehicles to actually change demand and use that demand, or what demand for charging those electric vehicles, if we could match that with the supply demand imbalance that existed in the system, and hence the idea came about.
Fantastic. Okay, so I guess obviously you've got the end user benefit, the owners of the electric vehicles at the end of the day with the app and the smart cable, and we can obviously have a look at that in a minute. But obviously our audience being automotive manufacturers, who is it within those businesses that you kind of need to engage with and should be aware of what you guys do?
Well, I think one has to just before we go and see who we should focus on, I think the important point to note about the cable is it's smart in a number of different ways. It knows where it is. It measures the amount of charging in each place, and actually it can optimize depending on its location to the cheapest amount of electricity. On top of that, we have built a fleet management platform, which allows fleet managers to measure what their drivers have done, and then helps, so it knows how much people have done at work, at home, and on the move, and then we can manage the billing on their behalf. Right. So if I was then in automotive, from the automotive industry, I would think about, well, what does Ohme bring to the automotive or to an OEM? Well, the first thing is it provides a piece of enabling hardware. Why is it enabling? Well, because it's low cost and it's mobile, so it can go with the vehicle. And that mobility and the fact of low cost allows you to actually finance it in a much more efficient way. So it could be financed as part of the vehicle. So that low cost financeable hardware is a very attractive proposition, I would say, for the OEMs. The second thing is that it basically allows the fleet managers that are, the SMEs and the various different fleet managers who purchase vehicles from OEMs, it allows them to help administer their fleet and reduce a barrier to them, which is the administration of fuel. In the old world, they had fuel cards, which meant they could give their drivers one fuel cards. In the new world, fuel is a different price depending on whether you're at home, the time of the day, whether you're on the move, or whether you're at work. So an integrated solution that pulls that all together in a platform and gathers that data is extremely important to the fleet manager. So when you sell your car with some cheaper charging hardware that's good, and you say, now we'll reduce one of your major barriers, Mr. Fleet Manager, which is the admin associated with the payments and fuel. The third part is it's actually, a lot of the charging occurs at home, and if you optimize that to the cheaper times, then you actually make the ownership of the fuel component a lot cheaper. So again, it makes the total cost of owning vehicles cheaper. So as an OEM, you've just made the proposition for EVs a lot cheaper across a number of different metrics. The final piece is, I would say, that I would like the OEMs to remember, is that Ohme is, even though it's hardware, it has an innovative piece of hardware. It is actually a data platform where we're continuously connected to our customers, our users, our drivers, and that allows you to kind of, I guess, get behavioral insights into how drivers perform. And I think for an OEM, I would look at that, is that there's a potential for them to ultimately connect to the end drivers in the future with a platform like Ohme, and then that opens a lot of other potential business models for OEMs.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay. Obviously, we live in a world now where, technology's taking over vehicles. So, completely see where this kind of fits in. Is it possible at this stage then maybe to have a look at the kind of cable that you guys have, the smart cable, and how that kind of connects into the app?
Yeah, no problem. So you have the power
Yep.
section. So this connects into a single phase 32 amp power supply. So it effectively makes any 32 amp power supply smart. So that's it would be a 7 kilowatt charger. Now it comes in a number of other variants, whether it's 3-pin Shuko, and we will have a 3-phase 22 kilowatt to 22 kilowatt charger later on in the year. So that's the end. So that's the part that attaches to the power. On the other side, standard Type 2 for everyone else. Standard Type 2 car adapter. It comes in Type 1 as well. But ultimately, this is as we know, Type 2 is the dominant form in Europe. And finally, you have the box, which is where the smart sits. It's your in-box EVSE, so as well as the microprocessor, the brain, and the 4G SIM card that communicates to our cloud. That's the physical hardware. The vast majority of the cleverness occur in the cloud, so we can continuously improve our product as we move through time, as the technology that we build and create improves in the cloud.
Okay. And then how does that connect to, say, the smartphone then? How does the app side work?
So at the very start, the cable speaks to our cloud and initiates effectively a chain reaction to say that the car is ultimately plugged in. It talks to the app, and it also talks to their energy supplier, the fleet manager, and picks whatever settings. From the driver point of view, what we have here is an app. Yeah, so down at the bottom left, you have the app. So you press that, and then this is the standard home screen. On this home screen, you can see that just as a dashboard, and shows what at the moment it says every morning 70%. So let me just take a step backwards and see here. Well, we got charge schedule. So you can pretty much set your schedule of the driver and say, well, on every day or a weekday, I need to be 70 or 80% charged at a specific time in the day. So this particular thing, and you don't have to do anything else. Then it says, look, I'm linked to my tariff supplier. At this particular stage, you can change your tariff, but go back to assume it's all set up. You're on your dashboard, and it says, at the moment, I have 20% charge, and I want to be 80% by 6:59 a.m. And then it says, what's the cost of that?
Okay.
What's the saving versus a standard tariff? What's my carbon footprint? And how kind am I to my battery? But a driver could quite easily change the time and say, well, actually, I need to do it as quickly as I possibly can. Reduce the time. Let's just leave that. Confirm. And what we see here is it's optimizing, and it will create a new schedule, which will then do it, and it's increased the cost to £9.76 from £4.72. So if the driver wants to do something a lot quicker, and charge maximum, they can see what the cost of actually delaying their charges in real time by just playing around with their optimizer.
Okay. So that makes perfect sense. So I can see there's obviously a lot of advantages there to both the manufacturers, fleet managers, as you've mentioned, and also onto the end users. And I guess as we move forward in the automotive sector, this is going to become more and more of an important point for drivers and manufacturers. So I can see completely the benefit of the sort of smart technology there. And from our side, that's something we're very heavily engaged with the manufacturer, integration with suppliers and things. So where's the sort of business at today then, when you sort of look at it from a manufacturer engagement point of view, from an automotive manufacturer perspective, where does the business sort of currently sit with the outreach to those manufacturers?
Well, I'd say that what we've been doing very much for the last 2 or 3 years, Harvey, was proving our concept at scale. And the user experience or the driver experience is very, very important in this. A driver, when they plug in their car, wants to be sure that they get what they want. So you can't afford not to be charged at the period of time, and they want to know exactly what it is. And we have I think 30 different OEM platforms on our platform, as well as across nearly 100 different vehicle types, and so they all behave very differently in the charging world. So we've had to make sure that works well. Also make sure that we can manage that ongoing interaction with all of those drivers so that they're happy, and actually perfect the fleet management platform. So we've been doing that here in the UK.
Yep.
And we've been quite fortunate that there's been some forward-looking utility providers that have created tariffs that are more dynamic and some forward-looking fleets. So that's kind of what we've been doing until now. Where we, because clearly, OEMs by their very nature do not want to take that much technology risk. But because we've proven what we've done with, at scale here in the UK, we're now able to have conversations and progress conversations with the OEMs and show that rather than being an idea or a prototype, it actually works at scale. So we've de-risked the proposition massively. So we're working quite closely with a major European OEM at this stage. That'll be announced in the next couple of weeks. So you might get to modify this video in the future with the name of that OEM. But at the moment, I'm not at liberty to say anything. But there will be an announcement. And it is our desire to work. We're an OEM agnostic platform. We want to enable the transition and help anybody who wants to work with us, help them to give their drivers and their users and fleet managers the experience they want, while helping those OEMs fulfill their strategic needs.
Perfect. Okay. So basically, where we stand at the minute then with the business is it's kind of full steam ahead. Everyone needs to know about you. Everyone needs to start talking to you to understand how at the manufacturing level, the benefits can be brought into the vehicles for the end user ultimately. So all sounds very exciting, very topical. Great opportunity for you guys as a business to get into the manufacturers, and I guess that's global as well. It's not just a UK focus.
No, you're spot on. I mean, it is. The timing is very good for us now, and in terms of where we are in the proposition and that smart cable and the overall platform proposition, we don't believe that there isn't a solution across Europe that exists that's like it, that's fully into it. So the time is now for us to scale into Europe, and all the approvals and everything we have we're approved for Europe, and actually we're approved, or hardware and operating systems approved for Australia and New Zealand, and we will be US approved in I think at the end of the summer. So we'll be looking at expanding into the case of pretty much that'd be CEUL and the Australian equivalent. So from a hardware perspective, it's about getting those approvals. From a software platform, can operate in any regime. It doesn't matter, as long as we have a 4G signal. We can, with our 3G signal, that the system can work. So it's been proven to work pretty much anywhere. The limit is around the regulation of the hardware and the safety aspects and the local laws that are associated with that.
Well, I guess from our point of view as a business, we specialise in connecting and engaging with suppliers, and it's definitely the first of this type that we've come across. So hence our interest in this particular topic. It sounds fascinating. So the plan moving forward then, lastly, I mean, where does the business go from here then? Is it just purely automotive, or do you go beyond that?
Well, ultimately, I think in terms of the platform itself is also of interest to service providers, in whether it's the fleet providers at various different things, because there's a whole load of data insights and information we give them. Again, with utilities, we help manage the energy use and help them on their hedging part. So we have a larger number, but again, there'll be announcements around projects where we're working with grid operators here in the UK, and more broadly about helping them manage their energy needs. Because if you can imagine, there is a potential huge challenge around the electrification of the grid, because everybody plugged in at the same time, the grid would explode. By way of example, there's 10 million EVs projected by 2030. If they plugged into the grid at the same time, we'd need twice the generation or peak generation capacity here in the UK. That's never going to happen. It's not possible. So the technology at the core of what Ohme is around moving supply to match demand is very important to them. So engagement with the energy ecosystem is extremely important. And I think in terms of also what's in the core of about what we do is, if you think about energy management full stop and things like that, that's what Ohme does. So electric heat and things like that are also part of the proposition.
Brilliant. Okay. And I mean, I guess on that point, last couple of questions, There does seem to be a quite apparent plan in the next sort of 10 years for automotive manufacturers to kind of move to fully electric. Obviously, you come from a slightly different perspective to the typical supplier or manufacturer. Do you think that 10-year plan is kind of realistic, or do you think it's optimistic that we'll be a fully electric platform?
I mean, it depends on whether we consider new sales or existing infrastructure, because we have. And it depends on which countries you're as well. Some countries where they don't have as much off-street parking makes it more difficult. So certainly PHEVs will have a decent role to play in the short to medium term. But the cost curve has come down a lot in terms of EVs. You can see that the battery component, which was a huge driver of cost, has dropped. I would say it's dropped nearly 80% in the last 7 or 8 years in terms of cost. So that's had a profound impact. We've actually seen some OEMs just write some articles over the last couple of days saying that they think that the margins in EVs can be as great as ICE. So that's a pretty big shift. And there's some of the largest global OEMs are now see a future, but that's largely driven by economies of scales and stuff. So with that amount of, we've got a long way based on, I guess, the R&D budget that Tesla put in it, but that's tens of millions. But actually, if you look at in the pipe, there's hundreds of millions of money being deployed across the broader OEM ecosystem. And I think that if you look at people look at the charging part as a big massive impediment to the adoption. I actually look at it as an opportunity, because if you look at EVs as a mechanism for making the actual grid smart, you can effectively unlock all of that value that's created in a dumb system. So if you look at about when we took the copper wires in our house and with ADSL made them smart, we unlocked a massive load of innovation and a value creation event that didn't require a whole amount of upgrading of infrastructure. It wasn't the only step, but so if you wanted to imagine a grid like that the EVs and the coming of EVs and that flexibility of demand that they can have for energy can effectively unlock a whole economic benefit, which will unlock value that will make EV ownership cheaper, because it will flow back to the OEM stroke the car or the vehicle owners, and we will get that virtuous cycle. And I think that will happen a lot quicker than people will think, because the total cost of ownership will drop, the cost of providing charging infrastructure will drop. As a result, and you get this virtuous cycle. Yes, it will take quite a long time to take all of those legacy ICE EVs off of the system, because there's an average turnover of maybe 6 to 7 years across an ICE, in various, depending on which country you're in. But the average belays the fact that some people don't turn over their vehicles for 10, 15 years. So to actually force some of those vehicles off the road will require further policy shifts. So look, it's a complicated process, but I think everybody believes it'll happen a lot quicker than they did 12 months ago.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems to be moving quite quickly in that direction, doesn't it? So finally, is there anything else we should know about the business? Anything we've not touched on? Anything else you'd like to sort of share with our audience?
As I said, I think that the piece that I would really like to drill home is that what the energy industry and the car industry are beginning to embrace through the EV transition is this, I would say, this continuous connection with the customer or the user. That hasn't been something that they historically have. And a platform like Ohme is positioned to help facilitate that continued connection. Fantastic. We're a data platform at heart. That's what we are. The hardware is really interesting and exciting, and it allows to help manage and accelerate that transition. But the core of what we are is a data platform, and as such, we're here to help facilitate that transition. Not to, I guess, take it over. So I would like the OEMs to consider us a partner or somebody that could help them. Amazing. To help sell more EVs quicker and to accelerate that transition for them, and the transition to the new business models that they all have in their plans.
So finally, thank you, David Watson, founder of Ohme, for fantastic insight into the business. Looks like you've got some really interesting proposition there with both the smart cable and also the interaction with the app and the smart technology, which I guess is available for all smartphone platforms. I think it's very interesting what you're doing. It's the first one that we've come across like this. So I think from a manufacturer's point of view, this is definitely something that I think will be of interest to manufacturers, and very quickly. And we look forward to chatting with you again and following your progress as you unleash your business offering into the automotive sector worldwide. So thank you very much again for your time.
Okay, and I'd like to say thank you very much, Harvey, for your time and giving us the opportunity to, I guess, spread the Ohme message. And as you've said, we're here to help and talk, and I'm very happy to speak to any of the people on the Motiv8 platform. Thank you.